Hey, this is chapter 7, number 1 in the program exercise. I want to do a demonstration of the enumeration data type for you to see. This is on page 501, program exercise number 1, bottom page 501. If you're following along, this is where I'm at. And part A states there's several parts to this. There's what, 3 parts to number 1. 1A states that define an enumeration type, a triangle type that has a value, scalene, isosceles, triangle, equilateral, and no triangle with this thing. So you might have to look back and go to Google and find some of the things that what these definitions of these triangular types, different shapes of this thing, what it looks like with it. So let's take a look at. I started out with a simple skeleton is what we started out with this. And I would like for you to come in and like I said, we need to define the data type that comes into this thing right now. Is the place to define to put your enumeration data type is between your using namespace and std and your int main with this thing right now. So I'm going to come into my using namespace std between that line right there right now. I've already typed this up already. So here's part A. So I call it enum is the reserved word. The data type that tells me to call this thing as triangle type. Put this in curly brackets. Now you notice that it's the right curly brackets and the left curly brackets with it. And then I end it with a semicolon right here. And between it, I tell it to do these type of enumerator are the my data types with this thing. I also comment out this is part A with this thing, and you notice that I didn't do this as uppercase. They're all lowercase. That'll work as well. Okay, and that's what it goes. It's taking place right now with this thing. All right, so that's part A. Part B says write a function called triangle shape that takes a parameter of 3 numbers, each of which represents the length of the side of the triangle. The function should return the shape of the triangle. So depending on what it is and what the sides are and what it looks like. Note, in a triangle, the sum of the length of any two sides is greater than the length of the third. Okay, so you have to look at the triangular shape with this thing. So this is a function that you need to write this thing in. And one of the things that when you look at the function when you write functions, if you recall in chapter 6, 2 types of function. Either it's a void function or a value function, right? So the fork in the road is we need to decide that this is this a value returning function? It's a value returning function with the data type of triangular shape, the triangular type. This is what we're looking for. So I've already typed this up. So let me go ahead and do this so we can not save some time with this thing. So here's my triangular type. This is my triangular type data type that I'm using. And it's going to return something, so I'm going to call this triangular shape like the problem asked me to do. I'm going to pass in side 1, side 2, and side 3. All these are with the data type of a double. It's very important that I need to figure out if it's a triangle or not. Now, if you notice that I use here are the structure of an if statements in this thing. So in this if side 1 and side 2 is less than side 3, or side 2 and plus side 3 is less than side 1, or side 2 plus side 3 is less than side 3, any one of these things, all right, then it's not a triangle. Else, if side 1 equals side 2, equal, and side 2 equals side 3, if you remember what an equilateral triangle is, it's all equal to one another. Or an isosceles triangle is when you have side 1 is equal to side 2, or side 2 is equal to side 3, or side 1 is equal to side 3 with this thing. So you remember how we had that one algorithm that we talked about if it's an even, an odd, or it's a 0. Remember that one problem that we did earlier in chapter 4 or 5 with it? Same algorithm in this thing. All right, same algorithm as this thing. All right, again, this is our function, so you need to take this thing, you need to have a function prototype. I'm going to copy this thing. Where does our function prototype come? It goes here with a semicolon. Okay, so that's one function. That's part B that we just did. If you recall the other function, so let me, that's for part B. Now you realize we haven't done anything. We just wrote the function. We haven't done anything inside the main right now. The next problem is part C says write a program that prompts the user to input the length and the side of a triangle and output the shape of the triangle with the same. Now, if you recall in chapter 6 when we write output or something that displays to the screen with it, if you recall, what was that? It was a void function. You're just displaying, outputting to the screen with this thing. You don't have to have any reference variables at all to this thing. So why don't we just go in here? I'm going to come down here at the bottom of this thing after part B right now, the function triangular type. I've wrote a print shape, okay, function, and it's a void. Okay, this is a void, print shape. I'm going to use the triangular type, data type. Look, triangular data type with this thing, right? Here's my triangular data type with this thing. Here's my triangular type, and I'm going to use, I'm going to pass in the triangle. Now, if I pass in the triangle, if it's a scaling, I want output as a scaling break. If it's an output as a isosceles, it's an isosceles, so on and so on. If you notice, I don't have a default in this thing at all. Okay, so this is how it's designed as that now. The other part about this thing is we're going to go into, on the top here, I'm going to use this, type up my function prototype, paste this with my second function prototype inside of this. This is the part that I'm going to come in. I'm going to actually call these two functions to actually get to work with it right now. So I'm gonna continue. I'm gonna go inside my main right now. I'm gonna call this function that both of these functions that I have created. Now let's look at this. This is part C. I need to define length 1, length 2, length 3. Okay. Prompt the user for the information. See out, enter the length of the 3 sides of this thing right now with this thing. Now inside of this, after this thing, I need to read in the length 1, length 2, length 3. So as I read in the length for this, when you type in the 3 numbers for this thing, I'm going to read in C1, length 2, length 3. The shape of the triangle, I'm going to call, this is very important, look at this, I'm going to call the method, the function, triangular shape, this shape. I'm going to pass in length 1, length 2, length 3, side 1, side 2, side 3. It's going to go through this structure. It's going to tell me what the return is. Okay? Very important that I have this thing. Now, inside of this, after I do this, this method now is nested inside of this print shape method that I have here, which is this print shape is this print shape right here. So I call the triangle that once I return one of these in here, the triangular type, I call the print shape. That actually tests that out to as whatever the triangular is going to come out in here. It's going to spit out as scaling, isosceles, triangle, or no triangle with the same. Okay, so if you compile this thing, this should work up to this point right now with it.